Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kechidori.
Hi guys, welcome to another very special episode. Today, I'm so excited about the subject we're going to be talking about. Really, it's one of those subjects that is very close to my heart because it's something that I've had to deal with, have had to learn about and apply it in my own life. And we're going to be talking about relationships, not any kind of relationship, but that one which is most important to you as a business owner, that one of your intimate relationship or your relationship with your wife or your husband. And my guest today, Bill Carmody, has been married for the last 20 years and helping others in business do exactly the same thing. If you want to know how to do relationships well, this is the episode to listen to. Bill, thanks again for joining us here today.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
You know, last time when we were together, we were talking about mental fitness, and today we are talking about something which is very close to your heart, which is all about relationships. Now, for those who haven't heard you talk about this, how did you come up with this?
Yeah, so I, after 25 years of building and exiting two multi-million-dollar marketing agencies, I decided to become an executive coach and a trainer. And really, my passion is for helping executives become the best possible versions of themselves so that their companies can grow and they can be very successful. And what I kept coming up against was that when I would coach my clients, I was really focused on business. I was thinking about how do they grow their sales? How do they increase their profits, all the things you would think about from a business perspective. And invariably, whatever was happening at home was showing up in the workplace. Yeah. And so if there was tension with their spouse, that tension was showing up when they would show up for work. And so we'd have these coaching sessions, and I realized that they needed a strategy and a plan for how to build a blissful marriage. And so I decided last year to begin working on this book, which is now an Amazon bestseller, which is awesome. We just achieved that goal on our anniversary. So on September 3rd, we celebrated 20 years of blissful marriage together. And on that day, we became Amazon bestselling authors because my wife is the co-author of this book. So what was beautiful about it was the opportunity to actually share all of the wisdom that we acquired from my father-in-law, my wife's dad, Richard Neese, who basically imparted the 3 rules of marriage. And so if you don't mind, I'd love to share how that came to be. Is that okay?
That would be amazing. Absolutely.
So I come from 2 divorced parents. So my dad and my mom divorced when I was 12 years old. And that actually is what made me become an entrepreneur. I had fear of scarcity. I decided to take on 5 different jobs. And that's where I began my entrepreneurial spirit, from being a paper boy to a door-to-door salesperson to lawn care businesses. I mean, you name it. At 12-year-olds, I was most entrepreneurial, and it was fantastic. But it was the driving force in my life. And I realized when I got married, I did not want to make the same mistakes my parents made. And so I really looked for somebody who already had parents that were together and were in a loving, blissful relationship. That's when I met Elena. And so when I met Elena, what she told me about her parents, they were already 45 years blissfully married. 45 years. And when I say they're blissfully married, most people don't believe me that they were blissfully married for 45 years, but they were literally patting each other on the butt in the kitchen. I'd be like, you're 45 years married. Who does this? It's certainly not me. I'd not experienced anything like this. And so when I went to ask my father-in-law for his permission for his daughter's hand in marriage, he graciously accepted, and I got engaged with Elena. But I asked him, I said, how did you do it? I see you guys act like newlyweds, 45 years into your relationship. How is it that you're still acting like newlyweds? And He said, well, we follow these 3 rules. And I said, stop, let me write them down. I did not want to have him just rattle them off and lose this wisdom. And so he gave me these 3 simple rules, which I'll share with you now, which I used as the basis of the book. And immediately, not only did I apply them to my marriage, I began applying them to all my relationships inside the business and outside the business. And that was one of the core secrets of what built the culture that I really, really was proud of when it was all said and done. So you ready for the 3 rules?
Absolutely. But before we jump to the 3 rules, you have been married for the last 20 years, and I'm sure the 3 rules have worked. But before you started applying the 3 rules, did you have to overcome, maybe skepticism and thinking, does this actually work? Or you just went straight into it?
So the thing about it is, with Tony Robbins, one of the things he's always maintained is that that success leaves clues.
That's right.
And so what was very for me, what I saw was looking at my father-in-law, seeing how blissfully happy he was 45 years into his marriage, knowing that my model of the world was from 2 parents who did not end up staying together. I really adopted his rules because I didn't have something better to go with. And so I really leaned into it from the very beginning, simply because I wanted a foundation for which to build my marriage. And he seemed to have it put together. I had not actually known any other people that had been married that long and were that happy. I could see people who were together for 45 years, but they were miserable. They didn't like being together. They would one would golf all day, the other one would cook in the kitchen all day. Neither one of them would spend quality time with each other. But here was these 2 beautiful souls spending every moment that they could, loving on each other, and that's what I wanted for myself.
Awesome, amazing. So let's dive into talk about the 3 rules.
Yeah. So the first rule is to not keep score. So the first rule of marriage is don't keep score. And this is for 2 reasons. Number one, generally speaking, women have a better memory retention than men. And so essentially, if you're in a traditional man-woman marriage, you're going to find that the women tend to really be thoughtful about all the different things that happen in the marriage. And if you were trying to keep score, the men would just lose every time. Like there would never be a chance for them to even be successful there. But even if you're in a non-traditional marriage, or 2 women are being married together, or 2 men, the whole thing about specifically being in that place of keeping score comes from a place of focusing on the past as opposed to being focused on the present. And so by not keeping score, the most powerful part of that rule is that it allows us to be fully present for what's going on. Because if I anchor our relationship to the past, and I talk specifically about what has happened in the past, then I can never move forward and progress into the future. So what we have in a marriage, in any relationship really, is to be fully present with each other. The greatest gift I can give you is my full presence. Right. And if I'm going to do that and I'm keeping score, suddenly I'm not being present with you. I'm talking about the things that have happened in the past, and I'm anchoring our conversations there.
Amazing. Yeah. And of course, even in business, when you are not present, you lose a great deal of opportunities that are right there in front of you as well, which is amazing, the correlationship there.
Exactly. And so from that vantage point, it allowed me to say, okay, now anytime that I was in violation of that rule, I would be remembered that, okay, what am I really wanting out of this? Because if you think about an argument, if I start bringing up all the past, my focus is not to build a relationship with you. It's to show you that I'm right, you're wrong, I win, you lose. And who really loses in that? We both lose.
Yes. Yeah. Which is not what you both want.
Correct.
Incredible.
Correct. So the idea of being present and not keeping score means we both get to win. And we focus on what we want to see in our relationship and what we're committed to in our relationship, not sort of figuring out who's got the bigger point total. Because ultimately, we don't go to the end of our marriage and then look at all the points and say who won. Because that's you miss the point of the relationship if that's the case. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, for those who struggles with not keeping the score, what advice would you give them?
So that's a great question. So really what it comes down to is that it's noticing when you do keep score. So I think the example of this is if you think about your closet. You come home from work, right? You open up the closet and you shove stuff in there. Now, if you disorganize your closet and you keep shoving stuff in and shoving stuff in, shoving stuff in, eventually you open up the closet door and everything comes falling out.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's like if I'm talking about like, you don't do this for me, you don't do that for me, you don't do this for me, you did it that wrong last time, you did it wrong. Like I'm going to keep picking at you and I'm going to keep keeping score. Eventually it's all going to come crashing down on my head.
That's right.
So the idea of how do you not keep score? You acknowledge, what is it you really want in this relationship? Is it to be right? Is it to win? Is it to be superior? Or is it to build the relationship of your dreams?
Yes.
What are you committed to?
That's right. That's right.
So I feel like whenever you notice yourself keeping score, it's again reminding myself, what am I committed to here? Am I trying to win? Am I trying to be righteous? Am I trying to be better than this person in front of me? Or am I really trying to extend love? And if I'm trying to extend love, then keeping score is taking me the opposite. I'm actually creating isolation. I'm not creating connection and love.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, at the end of the day, you want something that is going to move you forward, and keeping a score definitely is not going to be doing that. What would be the second rule?
Yeah, the second rule is it's more important to say I appreciate you than I love you. Now, here's what blew my mind on this one. In my mind, I always had it that love was more powerful and more important than appreciation. And so I questioned my father-in-law. I said, Dick, come on, tell me about this. Hang on. I think love's more valuable and more important than appreciation. How can you say that it's more important to say I appreciate you than I love you? And he says, appreciation is specific. Right. Love is general. So I could say this and mean it. I love you and I don't like you right now. Could those both things be true? I can love you as a person and not like you in this moment. So in that piece, just because I say I love you is not enough. Because love is also general. It means it can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And how you feel and experience love may be different than how I feel and experience love. In fact, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages, right? And it shows like all the different ways we feel and experience love. And so I go into that in the book too. But the main point here is that when I say I appreciate you for, and I'm being very specific, I appreciate you taking out the garbage. I appreciate you washing the dishes. I appreciate you making the bed or folding the laundry or making money or going out there and working as hard as you do for us to have the life we want, or for creating financial freedom for us. That's specific. And I can experience the idea of how much you appreciate me for that specific thing.
Wow.
And I can experience it without having to be general.
This is amazing. Come to think of it, I use this strategy with my team. Every single time I mention that I appreciate what you've done for me specifically on this, the morale goes up. In fact, the level of trust that I create with my team, that most of my team are remote, so I hardly see them. But the amount of loyalty that I get as a direct result of appreciating even the little things that they do is outstanding.
You got it. And and I love that you're bringing it back to business, because these rules absolutely apply to business. And while we're talking about like your primary relationship, your marriage, these exact rules will support you in building epic multi-million-dollar companies. Because what ends up happening is if you as an employee feel appreciated by me, the owner, then you're more likely to work harder with me and you're going to go the extra mile. Conversely, if you don't feel appreciated by me, if you don't experience that I appreciate how valuable you are as an employee, and all you're doing is clipping a paycheck, you're gone. The first opportunity that someone pays you more money, you're out of there. So the appreciation is also what creates loyalty. Yeah?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Now, appreciation doesn't come so natural to a lot of people. How for those who probably haven't been raised in that way, how can they get started and have the mindset to move towards that direction?
Beautiful question. There are 2 really important strategies here. The first is to always look to acknowledge someone for what they're doing well, rather than picking apart what they want to see improved. So we actually do it as a 3-to-1 ratio. So let's say something like, I wanted to give you feedback on your podcast. If I came in and immediately started attacking you and telling you, like, this didn't work, that's not working, this isn't working, you feel beat up and discouraged. And all you hear is, I'm a terrible podcaster. You don't actually hear any of the positive things. So when I go back and tell you all the great things you're doing well, none of that hears that. And part of this is because the way our brains were built. So the idea of our limbic system and exactly what happens with the way we process information, we have a much higher sensitivity to what's negative than what's positive, which is what we talked about in our mental fitness session. So apply that here too. When giving someone feedback, you want to give them 3 pieces of positive feedback for every one thing you want to improve. That alone will move you down the path of appreciation. Because if I can say, I appreciate that you show up on time, I appreciate the quality of the audio that you set up for both of us on this podcast. And I appreciate the thoughtful questions that you give when you actually interview your guests. Right away, boom, 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 you're hearing like, okay, I'm doing some really good things. Then when I go to tell you one thing, just one thing I'd love to see improved, you'll actually hear it because you're coming from a place of positivity and you won't take it personally as much as see as an opportunity to do even better. So if I'm fired up with all the things you've told me that I'm doing right, then I want to know, well, what's better? What else can I do to be better? And that one thing, not 5 things, not 20 things, even if you saw a bunch of things, what's the one thing that would dramatically support this person in being much better than they are right now today?
Wow, amazing. And this works in every relationship, in every way.
Exactly. And right now, the second tool here is gratitude. What are the 3 things you can be grateful for about this person right now in this moment? Not grateful that they came to work for you, right? That's a historical decision. Like in this moment, I can be grateful that you had me on as a podcast guest. I can be grateful that you're interested in my book. I can be grateful that you're asking powerful questions so your audience can get something out of this interview, right? Boom, boom, boom. 3 things of gratitude. And as I do that, more opens up. I'm grateful that we have this time together. I'm grateful that you asked me back. I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to impact both people's relationships as well as their businesses. Watch how gratitude snowballs when you just start with 3 things you're grateful for. And they can be small things.
Yes. Who wants to be in a place where they are not, seen as of value? And if you can increase that in your relationship, in your business, it's amazing what would happen.
Exactly. The world is your oyster.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. Let's talk about the 3rd rule.
The 3rd rule. Okay, here we go. Never go to bed angry.
Right.
Now, here's the thing about that one. This allows you to bring closure to anything that is upsetting you so that you start the next day fresh. It works beautifully in your marriage and it works beautifully at work. Here's what that means. If I have an issue, then I am only allowed to deal with it in the moment, right? Because we want to be present. So I'm not keeping score. I'm being present with what's happening. I have a powerful conversation with you and then it's over. It's done because see rule number 1, don't keep score, right? If I choose to be angry about something and choose not to speak to you about it, that's on me. And if I choose to go to bed without saying anything about it, it's done. I don't get to go talk about it again because see rule number 1. So what that does is it tells me in my relationship, is this important enough to bring up right here, right now? If it is, then I get to deal with it in the present. If it's not, I get to let it go. Wow. And if I do let it go, I don't get to bring it up again.
This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, no wonder why your book has become the best-seller, because this concept, even though they seem so simple, they are transformational to anyone who applies them.
That's it. That is the beauty of simplicity. None of these rules are complex. There's not a whole bunch of caveats. There's no circumstantial, we'll do this, but only when that happens. They are dead simple. And yet what's profound is the extraordinary life you will have when you implement them. And I mean extraordinary. Because think about this. I am 20 years into my marriage now, and I am more in love with my wife than I was 20 years ago. No bullshit. I love her that much. And the reason I can honestly say that and look you in the eye and say that is because I got out of the falling in love phase, right? And I'm using air quotes here, right? Where I basically fell in love with my wife and, oh my God, isn't it romantic and beautiful and all that's wonderful? That is the endorphin rush that happens, the brain chemicals that say, life is better because this person's in your life. That fades. And what you're left is the foundations of what you are building in your relationship. And so if you're building nothing but take, you're going to have nothing left because there's nothing in that relationship to build a foundation on. But if you're constantly giving your appreciation, you're giving away anything that's not working in the relationship, you're literally letting it go. You're focusing on what's right and you're reinforcing what's right. What you're going to have is an epic relationship with anyone, whether that's a work colleague, whether that's your wife or your husband, anyone that you choose to have a powerful relationship with. These rules will manifest the outcome that you want to see.
Outstanding. Now, there are those that say, look, I'm doing all these things, but the other person is not doing it. What is your comment to that?
Yeah, love it. What a great question. Thank you, Yeukai. So, first of all, we can never change another person. So let's start there.
Right.
If your objective is to change someone, you will be disappointed because you do not have the power to change anyone but who?
Yourself.
Myself. And yet, when I change myself, I am basically using the flow of our relationship to change you. So I can't force you to change, but I can invite you into a different way of being by the way I change myself. So herein lies the opportunity. The biggest myth is that if there's a problem in our relationship, it's because you did it to me. That's the myth.
Right.
That's victim. I'm staying in a place of victim mentality. And what that means is that you're doing something to me, and I am a helpless individual who is waiting for you to change. If you are in that position, you are completely a victim and are helpless and can't do anything about it. You will not want to live your life that way.
No.
So let's reverse it. If I say I'm accountable for everything, even the things you're doing, and I take responsibility and accountability to what you choose to do in our relationship, then I can shift and change my ways of being, the way I interact with you. And in so doing, it changes the entire course of our relationship.
Wow.
So while I can't force you to change, I can change my ways of being and I can change how we are together so that I can create a new outcome in our relationship.
Wow, it all starts with you, and you set the ball rolling.
Always.
Amazing. Let's talk about some people who maybe seemingly have gone too far and the relationship doesn't seem to be in a place where you can mend it. How can they get started to live by these rules?
So I would say the first step is actually go download my workbook for free at 3rulesofmarriage.com. Why? Because the first thing I do in the workbook is have you evaluate what level of relationship you're in. There are 5 levels of relationship. Number 1 is single, no relationship, right? So I am single and I'm looking for a relationship.
Yeah.
Number 2 is I'm actually planning my escape. I'm in a relationship, but I want out of my relationship. So I'm planning my escape. I can't wait. I am totally committed to not being in a relationship. I'm in one, but I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Right? Level 3 is acceptance. It is what it is. And I saw my grandparents do this. My grandparents, because they grew up Catholic, they believed that they were married in the eyes of God. And so it was no longer about whether they liked each other. They believed from a very philosophical and religious standpoint that they were not allowed to get divorced. Like that was a sin. And therefore, they would stay together because they promised in the eyes of God that they would be together. Now, here's the problem with that. They were miserable. And they had a long, long marriage. And yet what I saw was each one went to their corner. He would hide behind his newspaper and his smoking pipe. And she would do whatever arts and crafts projects, but they hardly ever spoke to each other. They did when they had to, but there was sort of a civility but it was not love. It was not passion. And that's a level 3 relationship. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're in, it's not a great way to live. It's not a healthy way to live. Then level 4 of the relationship is, you have a good thing going, but there's more. So level 4 is typically where people, like, especially when they've fallen in love, they know that there's another level to their relationship. They're happy, they're joyful, they enjoy it, but they get these glimpses of what the relationship could be. And so they go more like a roller coaster. They go back and forth between like an acceptance of how things are in 3 up to a level 4 where they're basically like happy and joyful, but then they drop down and they sort of find themselves bouncing a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have level 5, which is true blissful marriage, where the level 5 seems unattainable to most couples. They think it's a myth. They think it's not possible. And it's like a fairy tale. And yet it is the very essence and the core of this book, The 3 Rules of Marriage. Like, when you implement these 3 rules, you can not only access a blissful marriage, but you can maintain and grow a blissful marriage. Keep pushing it up to new heights. And every time you think you've gotten to the apex, the peak, you find another level. And you keep going. You're like, how is this even possible? My wife and I keep debating. Our biggest fight in our relationship is who's the lucky one. And I know I'm the lucky one, but she says the same thing. And so we go round and round in that. But think about that. How would that be if that was your relationship?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Can you imagine applying that in a business circle as well, when you're in a place where your employees are saying, I'm the lucky one to be working here, and you're saying, I'm blessed to have you work for me, or
Exactly.
even other partners, they say, I'm blessed to have you, in my business. And, it's amazing. And it all comes down to the 3 rules.
That's it. And then you've nailed it. I mean, think about what kind of culture you would create if every person on your team felt honored and privileged to be in this company. Wow. How would that be? And it's totally possible. If you feel appreciated, if you know that you're willing to take risks, and if you make a mistake, you're going to be held high, which is to say that, I want to support you in learning in your development. If my purpose for you being a team member in my company is your self-actualization, that is way beyond a paycheck. This is, how are you self-actualizing into the absolute best person that you can possibly be on this planet? And that I'm more concerned with your self-actualization than whether or not I'm keeping you as an employee. If that is let go, how would that be to work for a company like that?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, Bill, as we're coming toward the end of our time here together, is there anything I have not asked you, but you feel anyone in either be in business or just in marriage alone, they can apply today, other than what we've talked about? What would that be?
One of the things while you were talking, it was coming up for me, was like thinking about it from this place of how having a framework like this gives you a depth of relationship that you can then count on. And it comes down to trust. I've been reading a book right now about authentic trust. And one of the things that I think comes into this is, when you implement these 3 rules, you're creating authentic trust. Wow. And the thing about authentic trust is that it's different than blind trust. So there's basic trust, which is like, I trust you until you tell me that I shouldn't trust you, right? Basic trust is like, we just kind of live that way. Naive trust is, you've already cheated on me once and I'm turning a blind eye to it. That's naive trust. I think it's not going to happen again, so I'm being naive about it. Authentic trust has conditions, but not in a place of whether you're right or wrong, but understanding the context of the ways in which I truly feel empowered to trust you based on both our work together, our history together, and the life we've created together. Now, the thing about authentic trust is you need actually time. You need to actually have game footage to see it. And the thing about these 3 rules is they will build the fastest path to an authentic trust. When you have authentic trust in a relationship, then you know that they have your back and that you have theirs. And you're held in such a way that there is a power that is unstoppable. That's what I want for the people who are listening to this podcast. I want them to know that this is attainable, to build authentic trust in their companies by using these relationship rules to really, really support their team and really create a culture. Because as Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Every time.
And that's what we want. Yeah.
Every time. Now, for those who wants to further their learning with you, where can they find you? And I know there's a great book out there. Please tell us.
Yes. So there's a couple things. There's 3rulesofmarriage.com, THREE. So spell it out, 3rulesofmarriage.com. You can download 2 free chapters of the book, as well as audio files, as well as the blog content and the workbook that I referenced. So there's all kinds of free resources on 3rulesofmarriage.com. The other thing that I would like to do is if anyone writes into you and Yeukai and say, hey, I really like this, I'd like to learn more, I'm going to give you a free audiobook you can give away to anybody who would like it, so they can listen to the actual audiobook at their leisure. This entire book was done on audible.com, so you'll be able to give that out to anyone who would like to hear it there. And if you want to reach out to me directly, billcarmody.com/coaching. Now, billcarmody.com/coaching, what that will do for you is give anyone who would like it a free 1-hour session with me to really focus on their relationship and building of their business. So anybody who would like to take advantage of that, I would love to offer that forward. So billcarmody.com/coaching.
Incredible. One of the things I love about our conversation is earlier on, we were looking at some of the testimonials that have come through as a direct result of the book on Amazon being the bestseller. Tell us about one of them. And I know what we're going to do. We're going to put a link at the bottom of this recording so that people can see that. Tell us 2 or maybe 2 things that seem to stand out from people who have read it.
Yeah. So first of all, I was really honored and blessed because I actually worked with a lot of transformational trainers, a woman by the name of Francine Ray, Betty Spruill, and Tanya Paris. These are all like leaders in the transformational industry. Betty Spruill worked with Tony Robbins when Tony was like very, very early in his 20s. So that's how far back she goes. All of them have given me rave reviews in the book itself. It's actually in the acclaim that's on the website. But just today, I was having a coaching session, and this woman named Kim, which you'll see up on the website, we'll put a link to the bottom of this. Kim came in and gave me a 2-minute impromptu testimonial that I asked her permission and immediately recorded. It was unprompted. She just said, I just finished reading your book, and it blew my mind. And she went into how fast these rules she implemented and how immediate she saw the results and changes in her relationship at home and how she's working with her clients. So she saw it from both a business perspective and a relationship. To hear her say it, you think I would have paid her. She's on fire. She's just so passionate. She's like, this book changed my life. And again, I love it because I know that there's under the essence of this, it will be transformational for the people who take the time to really digest the material and put it to work. I don't want this to be an intellectual exercise. I want people who read this to actually go to work on it, because if you implement these 3 rules, it will change the very fabric of your relationships.
Amazing. Well, it will work because you have observed others 45 years of marriage applying the same principle. Now you 20 years of doing that, applying the same principle and experiencing the same results. Like Tony says, success leaves clues. And there you go, right there. Well, with that said, Bill, I want to thank you for being here with us again, sharing your wealth of wisdom with our audience and with me. I love this stuff, and I will be applying this in my own life because I can see the value of this.
Thank you, Yeukai. I appreciate you having me on the show. Appreciate you.
Incredible. There you have it, guys. The simple rules that will truly transform your life. As we always say, apply them for a season and see what will happen.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.